The Last Frontier, A Galactic Rebellion. Chapter 1, The New Order. The crystalline spires of Nova Centralis pierce the artificial atmosphere like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the pale blue light of 3 distant suns. Commander Zara Voss pressed her palm against the observation deck's transparisteel window, watching as another freight convoy disappeared into hyperspace, carrying resources stripped from the Outer Rim worlds to feed the ever-growing appetite of the Galactic Council. 3 years had passed since the formation of the Intergalactic Empire, and already the weight of centralized control was crushing the life from 1,000 civilizations. What had begun as a promise of unity and prosperity had devolved into systematic exploitation on a scale never before witnessed in galactic history. Another shipment from Kepler 442b, her aide, Lieutenant Marcus Chen, reported with barely concealed disgust. Rare earth elements, enough to power a small fleet. The Keppelrains won't survive another winter without their mining equipment. Zara turned from the window, her weathered face etched with lines that spoke of too many battles fought and too many compromises made. At 45, she had served in 3 different military organizations as star systems rose and fell, but nothing had prepared her for the Empire's ruthless efficiency. "How many worlds have we stripped this quarter?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. 47 major extractions, 212 minor ones. The agricultural worlds are being converted to monoculture farms, the manufacturing planets retooled for military production. Marcus paused, his dark eyes meeting hers. The Council's calling it the Resource Optimization Initiative. The euphemism made Zara's stomach turn. She had seen the reports from the Outer Rim, entire ecosystems destroyed, indigenous populations relocated to work camps, centuries-old cultures erased in the name of efficiency. The Galactic Council, housed in their gleaming tower at the heart of Nova Centralis, spoke of necessity and the greater good while millions suffered. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. The holographic display materialized before them, showing the stern visage of Council Chairman Victor Kronos, his augmented features giving him an unsettling, mechanical appearance. Commander Voss, his synthesized voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "You are to report to Council Chambers immediately. We have a new assignment for your battle group." The transmission ended before Zara could respond. She exchanged a meaningful glance with Marcus, both understanding that another world was about to be added to the Empire's ever-expanding catalog of conquered territories. The journey to the Council Chambers took them through the heart of Nova Centralis, past the monument districts where statues of the Empire's founding fathers stood in eternal vigilance. Zara had once believed in those men and women, had thought their vision of unity would bring peace to the galaxy. Now she wondered if they had always intended this outcome, or if power had simply corrupted their noble intentions beyond recognition. The Council Chambers occupied the entire top floor of the central spire, a vast circular room where holographic star maps displayed the Empire's territorial holdings in real time. Red dots marked resource extraction sites, blue indicated military installations, and green showed fully integrated worlds. There was precious little green on the map. Chairman Kronos stood at the center of it all, his form casting long shadows across the tactical displays. Around him, the 12 other council members, representatives from the most powerful member worlds, observed in silence. Their faces, some human, others belonging to species Zara barely recognized, shared a common expression of cold calculation. "Commander," Kronos began without preamble, "your reputation for efficient world pacification makes you ideal for our next target." He gestured, and the star map zoomed in on a small cluster of systems near the galaxy's edge. "The Arcturus Coalition has been uncooperative regarding resource-sharing agreements." Zara studied the tactical data streaming across her neural interface. The Arcturus Coalition consisted of 17 systems united by trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. They possessed significant industrial capacity and had been one of the few political entities to reject the Empire's initial overtures. "Where are our objectives?" she asked, keeping her voice carefully neutral. "Complete integration," replied Counselor Zentar, her crystalline features refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns. "The Coalition possesses manufacturing capabilities we require for the next phase of expansion." Their continued independence sets a dangerous precedent. They have a fleet, Zara observed, noting the defensive installations scattered throughout Coalition space. This won't be a simple occupation. Which is why we're sending the third battle group, Kronos smiled, the expression looking unnatural on his augmented features. 120 vessels, including the dreadnought Hegemony. Overwhelming force will minimize casualties on both sides. The implied threat was clear: surrender or face annihilation. Zara had seen this scenario play out dozens of times, each world falling before the Empire's military might like wheat before a harvester. But something about the Coalition was different. Their defiance spoke of desperation, and desperate people were capable of extraordinary things. "When do we deploy?" she asked. "Immediately. The longer we allow opposition to fester, the more likely it is to spread." Kronos dismissed her with a wave of his augmented hand. "The Empire's future depends on unity, Commander. Unity through strength." As Zara left the chambers, those words echoed in her mind like a curse. Unity through strength, it was the Empire's unofficial motto, inscribed on every military vessel and government building. But she was beginning to understand that there was no unity in subjugation, only the illusion of order maintained through fear. The third battle group assembled at the edge of Nova Centralis's gravity well, an imposing collection of warships that represented the pinnacle of Imperial military technology. The dreadnought Hegemony dominated the formation, its 12-kilometer hull bristling with weapons designed to crack planets. Surrounding it, cruisers and destroyers took their positions in perfect mathematical precision. Zara stood on the bridge of her flagship, the heavy cruiser Dominion, watching as the final preparations were completed. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, most of them veterans of previous integration campaigns. They were good soldiers, loyal to the Empire and to her, but she wondered how many of them truly believed in their mission. "All ships report ready for hyperspace transition," reported her navigation officer, Commander Sarah Park. "Course laid in for Arcturus Prime." "Initiate jump sequence," Zara ordered, settling into her command chair as the familiar sensation of hyperspace translation washed over them. The journey to Arcturus space would take 6 days, 6 days during which Zara found herself wrestling with doubts that had been growing for months. She had joined the Imperial Navy believing she could make a difference, that military service was a noble calling that protected the innocent and upheld justice. Instead, she had become an instrument of oppression, a hammer wielded by those who saw entire civilizations as nothing more than resources to be exploited. On the 4th day of transit, she received an encrypted message through unofficial channels. The sender's identity was masked, but the contents made her blood run cold. "Commander Voss, we know you have doubts. The Arcturus Coalition has asked for our help. There are those within the Empire who remember what we once stood for. If you're ready to remember too, transmit your patrol schedules for the Outer Rim. The resistance is real, and it's growing. We need leaders like you." Zara stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. But the words had been planted, and like seeds in fertile soil, they began to grow. Chapter 2, First Contact. The Arcturus system hung before them like a jeweled necklace, 13 worlds orbiting a K-type star, their surfaces glowing with the warm light of artificial cities and industrial complexes. It was beautiful in the way that living civilizations were beautiful, chaotic, organic, full of the vitality that the Empire's sterile efficiency sought to crush. "Coalition fleet detected," announced Commander Park, her voice tight with tension. 67 vessels in defensive formation around Arcturus Prime. They're not backing down. Zara studied the tactical display, noting the Coalition's deployment. Their ships were smaller than Imperial vessels, but they had positioned themselves with tactical acumen that suggested experienced commanders. More importantly, they had accepted battle against overwhelming odds, which meant they were fighting for something they valued more than their lives. "Open a channel to the Coalition flagship," she ordered. "Let's see if we can resolve this without bloodshed." The main screen shimmered, revealing the bridge of a Coalition heavy cruiser. The woman who appeared was perhaps 10 years younger than Zara, with prematurely gray hair and the kind of steady gaze that came from facing impossible choices. She wore the blue and silver uniform of the Coalition Navy, and her expression was one of grim determination. "I am Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Coalition Defense Force," the woman said, her voice carrying across the void between fleets. "You are in violation of our sovereign space. Withdraw immediately." "Admiral Vasquez, I am Commander Zara Voss of the Imperial 3rd Battle Group. I have orders to facilitate the peaceful integration of the Arcturus Coalition into the Galactic Empire. Stand down your forces and prepare to receive occupation personnel." Vasquez's smile was bitter. "We've seen your peaceful integration on other worlds, Commander. Millions dead, entire cultures erased. We choose to stand and fight." "You can't win," Zara said, and she found herself hoping the other woman would listen. "My battle group alone outguns your entire fleet 3-1. Surrender, and I can guarantee the safety of your civilian population." "Can you guarantee their freedom?" Vasquez asked. "Can you promise that their children won't be shipped off to work camps? That their resources won't be stripped to feed the Empire's endless hunger?" Zara opened her mouth to lie, to give the assurances that protocol demanded, but the words wouldn't come. She had seen too much, knew too well what Imperial integration truly meant. "I thought so," Vasquez continued. "We know what we're facing, Commander. We know we'll probably die here today. But some things are worth dying for. And sometimes, sacrifice lights a fire that can't be extinguished." The transmission ended, leaving Zara staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders, their faces reflecting the grim reality of what was to come. Somewhere in the Coalition fleet, 10,000 men and women were making their peace with death, choosing martyrdom over subjugation. "Sir?" Commander Park prompted gently. "Your orders." Zara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a lead cloak. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. "Signal the fleet. Battle stations. Prepare for engagement." The 3rd Battle Group moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons charging as they closed the distance to the Coalition fleet. On the tactical display, Zara watched as both sides maneuvered for advantage, captains and admirals playing a deadly game of chess with thousands of lives as the pieces. The first shots came from the Coalition forces, lance beams and missile salvos reaching across the void to test Imperial shields. The Empire's response was measured and devastating, a coordinated barrage that shattered 3 Coalition destroyers in the opening seconds of combat. But the Coalition fleet didn't break. Instead, they pressed their attack with a ferocity that surprised even seasoned Imperial officers. Their ships darted between the heavier Imperial vessels like wolves among bears, using their superior maneuverability to strike at weak points before disappearing into the sensor shadows of nearby asteroids. Admiral Vasquez proved to be a tactical genius, using the system's complex gravitational fields and debris patterns to offset the Empire's numerical advantage. Her ships struck hard and faded away, forcing the Imperial formation to spread out in pursuit and reducing their concentrated firepower. For 6 hours, the Battle of Arcturus raged across 3 million cubic kilometers of space. Zara found herself genuinely impressed by the Coalition's performance. They were losing, dying by degrees as Imperial firepower slowly ground them down, but they were making the Empire pay for every meter of space. It was during the battle's climax, as the dreadnought Hegemony moved to finish off the crippled Coalition flagship, that everything changed. "Commander," shouted the communications officer. "We're receiving multiple hyperspace signatures. Unknown contacts jumping in at the system's edge." The tactical display exploded with new contacts, dozens of ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect coordination. But these weren't Coalition vessels. They bore the markings of worlds that had already been integrated into the Empire, their hulls painted with the symbols of 100 different civilizations. "This is Captain Jorel Kothak of the Free Fleet," a familiar voice echoed across all frequencies. Zara recognized the name. Kothak had been a loyal Imperial officer until his homeworld of Titan's Hope had been strip-mined into ecological collapse. "Imperial forces, you have 2 minutes to stand down and withdraw from Arcturus space." "Sir," Commander Park whispered, her face pale with shock. "That's the heavy cruiser Liberation. It was reported destroyed 6 months ago." Zara stared at the tactical display as the truth became clear. The Free Fleet consisted entirely of destroyed Imperial vessels, ships that had supposedly been lost in accidents or alien attacks. Their crews were deserters, defectors who had chosen to fake their deaths rather than continue serving an empire they could no longer stomach. The encrypted message she had received suddenly made sense. This wasn't a spontaneous rebellion, it was an organized resistance movement that had been planning for months, perhaps years. And somehow, they had known exactly when and where to strike. "Commander Voss," Captain Kafak's voice was urgent. "We know about the message you received. We know you've been having doubts. Join us. Help us save these people." On the main screen, Admiral Vasquez's battered flagship limped toward the incoming Free Fleet, her remaining ships forming up in a combined battle line. The tactical situation had shifted dramatically. The Empire still had superior numbers, but they were now facing a coordinated alliance that knew their tactics and weaknesses. Zara felt the eyes of her bridge crew upon her, waiting for orders that would define not just the battle's outcome, but the future of the galaxy itself. In that moment, she understood that this was about more than the Arcturus coalition. This was the beginning of something larger, a rebellion that could spread from system to system if it wasn't crushed immediately. "Sir?" Commander Park repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Zara looked at the tactical display one more time, seeing not just ships and weapon ranges, but the hopes and dreams of billions of sentient beings. She thought of the Keplerans dying in the cold, of children separated from their families, of entire civilizations reduced to resource extraction quotas. When she spoke, her voice carried across the bridge with absolute authority. "Signal the fleet. All ships, stand down and withdraw to minimum safe distance." The bridge erupted in confused voices as officers tried to process the unexpected order. Commander Park leaned forward, her eyes wide with shock. "Sir, I'm not sure I understand." "I said stand down." Zara's voice cut through the chaos. "All weapons to safe, shields to minimum power. We are withdrawing from combat." "Commander," the voice of Captain Reyes from the dreadnought Hegemony crackled over the comm. "What are your orders regarding the enemy fleet?" Zara took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would make her a traitor in the eyes of the Empire she had served for 20 years. But they would also make her something she had almost forgotten how to be, a protector of the innocent. "Captain Reyes, the Coalition fleet is no longer our enemy. Signal the Free Fleet and request a meeting with their commanders. We need to talk." The stunned silence that followed was broken by the sound of weapons powering down throughout the third battle group. One by one, Imperial ships ceased their attacks and began to withdraw, their crews struggling to understand why their commander had just committed the highest form of treason. But on the Coalition flagship, Admiral Vasquez was smiling for the first time in months. And in the depths of space, Captain Kafak was already composing a message that would be transmitted to rebel cells throughout the galaxy. "The Imperial Third Battle Group has joined the Free Fleet. The revolution has begun." Chapter 3, The Underground. The abandoned mining station on Kepler 438c had been dead for 3 years, its automated systems shut down when the Empire declared the asteroid belt economically unfeasible. What the Imperial surveyors hadn't realized was that the Keplerian miners had been more thorough than their reports indicated. Beneath 17 layers of bureaucratic documentation lay a fully functional facility that had been deliberately hidden from Imperial oversight. Zara Voss walked through the station's central hub, marveling at the ingenuity of the Keplerian resistance. What appeared on official records as an abandoned mining operation was actually a sophisticated command center, its corridors humming with activity as representatives from dozens of star systems coordinated their rebellion against the Empire. 3 weeks since Arcturus, and we've received contact from resistance cells in over 200 systems, reported Captain Kafak, his 6-armed Xerian physiology allowing him to manipulate multiple data displays simultaneously. The Empire's response has been predictable. Zara studied the intelligence reports streaming across the holographic displays. The Empire had declared martial law in 17 sectors, increased security patrols by 300%, and begun what they termed loyalty verification procedures on worlds deemed potentially rebellious. In practice, this meant mass arrests, forced relocations, and the kind of brutal crackdowns that only serve to fuel further resistance. "What's our current fleet strength?" she asked, still struggling to adjust to her new role as military coordinator for the Free Fleet. 147 vessels of various classes, replied Admiral Vasquez, who had become Zara's closest advisor since the coalition had formally joined the resistance. Not counting the ships that are still technically Imperial but whose captains have indicated their sympathies lie elsewhere. The number was simultaneously encouraging and terrifying. In 3 weeks, the Free Fleet had grown from a handful of deserter vessels to a force that could challenge Imperial battle groups. But against the Empire's full military might, over 15,000 warships scattered across 3 galaxies, they remained hopelessly outnumbered. "We can't win a conventional war," Zara stated flatly. "Even if every disaffected Imperial captain joined us tomorrow, we'd still be facing odds of 10 to 1. "Which is why we don't fight conventionally," interjected a new voice. Dr. Malik Hassan emerged from the shadows near the command center's edge, his lined face bearing the marks of someone who had seen too much suffering. Once the Empire's leading xenoanthropologist, he had become the rebellion's chief strategist after witnessing the systematic destruction of the Andromedan archaeological sites. "The Empire's strength is also its weakness," Hassan continued, approaching the central display. "They've become dependent on centralized control, massive logistical networks, and the assumption that their subjects will remain passive. Disrupt those assumptions, and the entire structure becomes vulnerable." He gestured, and the display shifted to show the Empire's supply routes, a vast web of hyperspace lanes connecting resource extraction sites to manufacturing centers to military installations. It was an impressive system, but Zara could immediately see the potential vulnerabilities. "Hit and run attacks on supply convoys," she mused. "Force them to spread their fleet protecting transport routes instead of conquering new territory." "Exactly. But more than that, we need to make resistance infectious. Every successful strike inspires 10 more worlds to rebel. Every Imperial atrocity that we publicize costs them 100 potential allies." Admiral Vasquez nodded thoughtfully. "We've been monitoring Imperial communications. Their local commanders are already complaining about increased security requirements. If we can force them to garrison every important system, they won't have enough ships left for expansion," Zara finished. "Brilliant. But it will take time, and time favors the Empire. They're still integrating new worlds every week." "Not if we can help it," Kothak interjected, his compound eyes reflecting the command center's lights. "My people have developed something that might shift the odds in our favor." He activated a new display, showing technical schematics that made Zara's breath catch. It was a hyperspace interdiction system, but unlike anything she had seen before, smaller, more efficient, and apparently capable of being manufactured with resources available to the Resistance. "We call it the Freedom Net," Kothak explained. "Deploy a dozen of these around a system, and you can prevent any ship from entering or leaving hyperspace within the interdiction field. Imperial fleets become trapped, cut off from reinforcement and supply." "How long to build them?" Zara asked, her mind already racing with tactical possibilities. "With our current manufacturing capacity? 6 months for the first prototype, assuming we can secure the necessary exotic matter." Kothak's expression grew grim. "Which brings us to our next problem: the Empire controls all the major exotic matter production facilities." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Exotic matter was the foundation of faster-than-light travel, the element that made interstellar civilization possible. Without access to it, the rebellion would be reduced to slower-than-light craft, effectively trapped in whatever systems they currently occupied. "Where are the primary production facilities?" Hassan asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. "Nova Centralis system," Zara replied. 3 major installations on the inner planets, plus the primary refinery on Nova Centralis itself. All heavily fortified, all under direct Imperial control. "Then that's our target," Admiral Vasquez said simply. "We hit the exotic matter facilities, cripple the Empire's ability to maintain their fleet, and buy ourselves time to build the interdiction network." Zara shook her head. It's suicide. Nova Centralis is the most heavily defended system in the galaxy, orbital defense platforms, the home fleet, the Imperial Guard. We'd need a miracle to even reach the inner system, let alone destroy the refineries. What if we didn't have to destroy them? Hassan's eyes had taken on the gleam that his colleagues had learned to associate with dangerous inspiration. What if we could turn them against the Empire? Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The tactical display shifted to show new contacts emerging from hyperspace at the system's edge, Imperial ships, moving in battle formation toward their hidden base. How many? Zara demanded, her command training taking over even as her mind reeled from the implications of discovery. 47 vessels, reported the sensor operator, a young Arcturian whose hands trembled as he worked his console. Including the dreadnought Retribution. They're broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. Zara felt her blood turn to ice. The Retribution was commanded by Admiral Marcus Thorne, one of the Empire's most ruthless officers and her former mentor. If he was here, it meant the Empire had discovered their location through intelligence gathering, not random patrol patterns. Someone talked, she said quietly. Someone gave them our location. The command center erupted in accusations and counter-accusations as the assembled resistance leaders struggled to process the betrayal. But Zara's mind was already moving beyond recriminations to the immediate tactical situation. How long until they reached the station, she asked. 17 minutes at current acceleration, the sensor operator replied. Fleet status? 63 ships in system, the rest scattered on supply runs or reconnaissance missions, Kafak reported. We're outnumbered, but not overwhelmed. Zara studied the tactical display, noting the Empire's approach vector and formation. Thorne was being cautious, advancing in a tight defensive formation that minimized his exposure to surprise attacks. It was textbook Imperial strategy, which meant it was predictable. Signal all Free Fleet vessels, she ordered. Prepare for immediate departure. Scatter Protocol 7, every ship jumps to a different random location, regroup at the secondary base in 72 hours. What about the station? Vasquez asked. There are 3,000 people here, plus all our intelligence files. The files are already being transmitted to our backup facilities, Hassan reported, his fingers flying over his console. As for the people, we evacuate who we can, but we don't sacrifice the fleet for the station, Zara said, hating the words even as she spoke them. The rebellion is bigger than any one facility. As the Free Fleet began its emergency departure, Zara found herself face to face with the first hard choice of the rebellion. Save the people they could and lose the war, or sacrifice the few to preserve hope for the many. It was the kind of decision that the Empire made every day, the ruthless calculus that she had joined the rebellion to oppose. But sometimes, she realized, there was no choice but to become what you fought against, if only for a moment. The last Free Fleet vessel disappeared into hyperspace just as the Imperial Vanguard reached weapons range of the mining station. Behind them, they left 300 volunteers who had chosen to stay behind and destroy the facility's sensitive equipment, ensuring that the Empire would learn nothing from their victory. As Zara's own ship jumped to safety, she carried with her the faces of those they had left behind, adding them to the growing list of martyrs whose sacrifice would fuel the rebellion's fire. The Empire had won this battle, but in doing so, they had created something far more dangerous than a hidden base. They had created a symbol. And symbols, as Zara was beginning to understand, were harder to kill than fleets.